One of the common themes that was embedded through all of the sessions that I attended was the culture trumps strategy. You can have the best strategies in place, however, if you don't have a positive culture, those strategies aren't going to make a difference. Jamarcus, could you talk to us a little bit more about what you saw?
Yes. While at the conference, one of the things that are a couple of the things that I noticed and picked up on and I also wanted to touch on five things. When we talk about creating a culture, a new environment, you got to ask some questions. What does a classroom, and does your classroom environment promote collaboration? As a teacher, how do you operate in that classroom? Do you have the tools, do your students have the tools that promote 21st century learning? What do you do if some of your students are not engaging? Which is more important to you as an educator, submission or knowledge? And if learners or students weren't required to come to your class, would they come to your class? So it's really important to understand that when creating this culture, there's going to be some radical change. Educators will have to discard old ways of doing things and embrace the new approach. The focus should be on what students are doing right instead of what they're doing wrong, with a key emphasis on making sure that the students have the skills that they need to be successful in both life and in school. Positive reinforcement should outweigh redirections for negative behaviors, and collaborations with critical thinking should outweigh lectures and repetitive memorization. So as an educator, you can't be afraid to, mess up or fail when trying to push a new culture. Continue to observe the students and make sure that you're open to becoming the student yourself as opposed to the teacher, because in the 21st century, sometimes our students are going to show us a thing or two about some of the things that they're interested in learning. So embrace that and give positive feedback. Understand that you're not giving up total control of your classroom. You're simply helping to facilitate their learning. Don't be afraid to ask students, what is it that you want to learn today within the confines of the subject that you're teaching? From there, just target the students' interest and their passions, and help continue to facilitate that learning. Technology is going to be a big part of that. So use that technology to once again help facilitate their learning.
Bill Daggett's International Center for Learning has identified 5 emerging trends in education that are going to take place in the next 3 to 5 years. The first emerging trend that I'm going to share with you is the impact of digital learning. Decades of research has demonstrated the benefit of digital learning. Digital learning is a tidal wave that cannot be held back. The genie is now out of the bottle. And I'd like to share with you a couple examples to illustrate that point. The internet is limiting the barriers to education. Think about Khan Academy, YouTube tutorials, MOOCs, Apex. All of these allow students with a variety of skill sets to learn whatever subject they want at their own time, at their own leisure. Touchscreen technology allows pre-kindergarten children to interact with early literacy and early numeracy skills in ways that have never happened before. They weren't able to do this with keyboards and mice. New digital tutoring systems are intelligent, and they can diagnose why a student makes certain mistakes. Those are powerful technologies that will have far-reaching impact on education. The next emerging trend I'd like to share with you is the heightened demand for career readiness. Technology is rapidly replacing many jobs. As educators, it would be unethical for us to prepare our students for jobs that will not exist in the future. I'll give you one example. Consider how technology has changed the banking industry. When was the last time you wrote a check or mailed a check or even went to the bank? Consider how Blockbuster's been shut out by Netflix and Hulu. Another couple examples. When I was in high school, Facebook didn't exist. Twitter was a sound. The cloud was in the sky. 4G was a parking space. LinkedIn was a prison. Applications were what you sent to college. Skype was a typo, and Google was just a number. The next emerging trend I'd like to share with you is the increased emphasis on application-based learning. Our students are finding it easier to be engaged if they're able to apply what they're learning to tasks and activities that they find relevant. The next emerging trend is the use of data analytics to inform the decision-making process. Data analytics is the science of examining raw data for the purpose of drawing conclusions. It's important for us to use this information to inform the decisions that we make about children and schools. And the final emerging trend that I'd like to share with you is the importance of developing personal skills. We need to make sure that our students leave skills with character traits that their families, their communities, and their employers will find beneficial. Having a great GPA will not negate a character defect or character flaw. Think about, would you want your daughter to marry somebody that was unfaithful, or would you want to hire a brilliant accountant who was not truthful? So those are the 5 emerging trends in education that will have a big impact on education in the next 3 to 5 years.
One of the most important concepts I took away from the conference was the imperative of literacy for our students. We must understand that literacy is a leverage for them. And if our students are to compete with the graduates from all the other districts around us for the best jobs, they have to be literate. And that means not just prepared for standardized testing, but prepared to function, to communicate, to write, to read, to research in a way that's appropriate in this information age. As educators, if we're going to make this happen, we have to do away with the fallacy that it's just the language arts department responsibility to teach literacy. That's the responsibility of every single teacher in this district. And that's where our PLCs come into play. It is there that we're going to develop strategies and measures that are appropriate for our students across the district and across every discipline. So often, I go to one of these workshops and I think, well, that was really neat, but that school is nothing like ours. That's not the case for the things that we saw at this conference. There was one school in particular, Brockton High School from Brockton, Massachusetts. It's a school much like ours. The kids there were mostly poor. They were very diverse racially, and they were at the bottom of all measures of success repeatedly, year after year. But it was teachers there. It wasn't some outside organization. It wasn't a group of administrators. It was teachers there that got together and decided they would develop the strategies, they would develop the measures that worked for their kids and their school. And because of that work, that school went from the bottom of all academic measures up to the top. And they've kept it up year after year. We can do the same thing if we'll take the same approach. PLCs developing literacy strategies that work across our district.
I'm going to talk to you about the rigor and relevance framework created by the International Center for Leadership in Education. The framework is used as a tool to measure how we as teachers deliver instruction so that students can be future ready. The framework has 4 components. Quadrant A is the teacher work section, and this is where you have a low level of rigor and you also have a low level of application. Quadrant B is the student work section. This is a low level of rigor with a high level of application. An example of this would be a career in technology education. Quadrant C is where students think. There's a high level of rigor with a low level of application. This covers any type of college preparatory course. It also covers where students are learning at a higher level other than their current grade level in the classroom. Quadrant D is where we need to be for our students to be future ready. It is a blend of both B and C where students work and think. There's a high level of rigor and there's also a high level of application. We need to have this high level of rigor and relevance across multiple disciplines.
The Model School Conference was great because I really felt like the schools across the country are embracing technology and innovation. And Bill Daggett, he gave a great example because if we were to take our time machine and go back 100 years to 1916 classroom and we explain to a teacher that in 100 years later, students will have access to what's called the internet and they're able to create videos, take pictures, and we're talking about they have that in their pocket to do this. They have devices now. I think the teacher will go, oh, that's great. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do with those students. Well, we're not doing that. We're behind. And now schools are starting to see to bridge that gap. We're talking in their language. They are able to use the skills that they know how in their personal life, and we're bringing it into schools. And that's what I thought was great, because in order for schools to keep up, they're going to be able to use their creativity, because that's the emerging trend. And then we have models to use now called Digital Matrix. We have the SAMR model, and these are for teachers to be able to reflect and know if they're using technology and innovation in their classroom effectively. So I think that in it is a way for schools to integrate technology in a way, because I know I want my kids to be able to go to a school that has those new emerging technologies out today. So that's what I saw in the model schools. I thought was great. At the Model Schools Conference, I really thought it was a big topic that are our students ready for the future workforce? And are we doing a good job at schools giving them those skills? It's 2016. We're already 16 years into the 21st century. So we're behind already. So we use that term, but we got to give our kids the ability to use skills like presenting, collaborating, sharing. They need to have transferable skills that is able to be mobile. They got to be able to work at 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they can live in one spot and work with someone across the world. Are we preparing students? Because low-performing school districts are seeing that by giving them skills, they are actually moving kids along up the ladder to get them employable out there in the world just by teaching these skills and ready to go. So I think we got to be ready for a different world than we see today.